Hello, and welcome to another episode of Chuchu is a Ranker. On this episode, we are going to be discussing the discography of the English rock band Kula Shaker. Although frontman Crispin Mills had been in performing bands since 1988, it wasn't until 1993, after a backpacking trip around India, that he formed a proto-version of Kula Shaker called the K's. In 1995, after struggling to get recognition, the band changed their name to Kula Shaker and also changed their style to reflect more spiritual and mystical themes. The band's 1996 debut album, K, was met with huge success, with several singles entering the UK top 10, including Hey Dude, which peaked at number 2, with only the Spice Girls barring its ascent to the top of the charts. By the time the band's second album came around in 1999, however, fashion had changed, and there was a pretty big media backlash aimed at Kula Shaker, fueled by the fact that Crispin Mills was often arrogant or stated really dumb things like he found the swastika to be a beautiful symbol during press interviews. This led to a sharp downturn in the band's popularity, and the band split up shortly after their second LP. In 2006, the band reconvened and started to sporadically release new albums, usually with an extended gap between each one. Unfortunately, Kula Shaker have never really been able to shake off the sense of general derision that follows them around, which, as this list is about to demonstrate, is patently unfair. The critic Simon Price from The Observer referred to them as a joke band, which is just bang out of order. I mean, I'd like to see that prick make a song as good as Govinda or Farewell Beautiful Dreamer. Anyway, as for my own fandom, I bought K back when it was new, and I listened to it a few times, but it just wasn't my cup of tea back then. 1960s revival just wasn't my bag. I mean, I was all about the more kind of like lyrically astute or emotional music like The Smiths, Gene, or The Divine Comedy, so Kula Shaker really never stood a chance. Indeed, I didn't even give the band a second thought until 2018, when I myself went on a backpacking trip to India. Then it was like, what kind of music would suit this particular journey? And yeah, I ended up absolutely hammering those first two Kula Shaker records for the entirety of my trip, and I gained quite a lot of appreciation for them. But after my trip again, I didn't really give the band a second thought until this exact moment in time, which I now regret because, minor spoiler alert, most of their discography absolutely rules. So without further ado, let's be complete rankers and rank up a storm. These are the studio albums of Kula Shaker ranked from worst to best. So, we're going to be kicking off this list with Strange Folk from 2007, which was the band's third LP, and this was the band's reunion and comeback album after their split in late 1999. And this album plies the band's usual trade of 1960s revival with psychedelic overtones, and it's not awful. The parts are all in place. I mean, you have pleasant melodies, lots of technically proficient playing, and a set of songs that are, well, just kinda nice. In fact, if you take any individual song from this and play it in isolation, you'd have to concede that it's pretty well done. However, to be honest, there's not much more beyond just being nice. This record suffers from a lack of identity. I mean, this could be any vanilla, technically proficient 1960s revival act. There's nothing that screams out that this is Kula Shaker. Plus, when you put all these nice songs onto an LP that runs 51 minutes, the niceness does start to contort into blandness. There isn't much that really sticks out on this album, plus there are also some issues with overcooked production, especially regarding the use of organs. I mean, I like organs, they can really elevate a track, but they're just really overused on this record. They smother almost everything and give the album a deep, dolorous soundscape that gets a bit overbearing during its runtime. So this is definitely not perfect, but there are enough decent components and solid playing for the record to remain relatively pleasant. This isn't a disaster like Be Here Now or anything like that. Highlights on this include the first 4 tracks. Opener, Out on the Highway, impresses with its stuttering guitar riff. Second Sight and Die for Love have a scruffy 90s Britpop feel. Great Dictator of the Free World has the vocal hook, I'm a dick, I'm a dick, I'm a dictator, which is fun, even though it's stolen from a simple plan. While closer, Persephone is lovely with its lilting melodies and resistance to overcooking its production. So yeah, this is easily Kula Shaker's weakest record in my opinion, but it's not quite the abject disaster that, frankly, I'd been fearing from Kula Shaker. And this mildly pleasant, vanilla flavoured record gets a vanilla flavoured 2.5 stars.
Alright, say my name.
Next up, we have Pilgrim's Progress, which was the band's fourth LP from 2010. So this isn't a million miles away from the band's previous entry, Strange Folk. It's more 1960s revival music, although this time with a little less emphasis on psychedelia. But this is a good bit better than Strange Folk by correcting that album's glaring faults. The arrangements are less cluttered and given more space, the organ work has been scaled back and is more tastefully done, and the songwriting is generally stronger overall. Highlights on a fairly consistent LP include the opener, Peter Pan R.I.P., which shows off the more spacious production and has some nice propulsive string stabs. Modern Blues has a slick stomping catchiness to its chorus and some really cool psychedelic guitar breaks. All Dressed Up and Ready to Fall in Love grabs attention by the way it starts as a slight acoustic tune but builds into a rhythmic foot stomper, while When a Brave Meets a Maid is an excellent instrumental with a fun Native American soundscape. The best track off of this though is the closer, Winter's Call. I mean, the way it starts as a low arpeggiated maudlin ballad before gathering pace and exploding is the stuff of guitar rock dreams. It is badass. And the organs that come in just before the finale, chef's kiss, yes please, I'll take that straight into the veins, sir. That tune is absolutely one of Kula Shaker's best. That said, this record isn't perfect, it does have the odd dip. Figure It Out is a bog standard slab of knoll rock, Ophelia is totally unmemorable, while To Wait Till I Come? To Wait Till I Come? To Wait Till I Come? Yeah, you know what, there are plenty of shitty jokes coming up on this episode, so I'm going to give that one a wide berth for now. But anyway, that song tries for some brooding darkness, but just ends up being kind of dull. But yeah, I mean, the odd occasional misstep aside, this is a solid and mostly enjoyable 1960s tinged romp. 3 stars. Next up, we have the band's debut album K from 1996, which is easily the most famous and most successful of Kula Shaker's works. In fact, it became one of the fastest selling debut albums of the Britpop era and spawned 3 top 5 UK singles. And the soundscape of this LP is unlike any other record in the band's discography. It perhaps calculatingly takes a leaf out of Definitely Maybe's playbook and turns on the grinding distortion. Almost every track on this record is a glowering rocker, with one foot entrenched in knoll rock and the other planted firmly in Grateful Dead territory. But it's a mix that works really well, due in no small part to the band's deft technical skill. I mean, in terms of being a guitarist, Crispian Mills absolutely smokes Noel Gallagher as a player. That said, being a really gifted guitarist doesn't always equate to amazing creativity. I mean, just see Johnny Marr's or Bernard Butler's solo careers for further information. But Kula Shaker definitely elevated themselves out of the mire of distorted Britpop by inflecting their music with Crispian's obsession with Indian spirituality and instrumentation. Tracks like Temple of Everlasting Light, Tapva and its sitar intro piece Sleeping Jiva, and the monolithically catchy banger Govinda really lean into that obsession and are just all the better for it. Other highlights include the instantly nostalgic stomp of opener Hey Dude, the buzzing wah-wahs and guitar muting operatics of Grateful When You're Dead, and the easy blues balladry of Start All Over. And the album is pretty consistent, so there's not really that much to complain about, but I will say that sometimes the distortion does play itself out. Tracks like Night on the Town and Sleeping Dogs are perhaps a bit too blustery for their own good, and Into the Deep has just a touch too much of Oasis in its DNA. But these are small nitpicks on an otherwise great 4-star record. So yeah, this is just an incredibly nostalgic slice of Britpop, and I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that would have expected to see this top the list. But no, as good as this is, it's unequivocally not my favourite Kula Shaker album. After all, highest charting and most famous doesn't always equate to best, but it is still a very good record with an undeniably classic place in Britpop history. Next up, we have Peasants, Pigs and Astronauts from 1999, which was the band's second LP. And after the huge success of K, the band were given complete artistic freedom and carte blanche with the budget, which, given Mills's proclivity to indulge on niche elements, was certainly a bit of a risk from the record company. Sadly, the risk didn't pay off in the financial sense, and the LP flopped pretty hard, leading to the breakup of that version of the band. And what we have here is a record that goes full bore on the Indian influences, stuffing the tracks full of Eastern instrumentation, spirituality themed lyrics, and chanting Sanskrit mantras like Radhe Radhe and Nandami Nandana Banana Fotana Fantana. What the fuck am I doing with my life? But you know what? I'm totally here for it, because the love of Indian spiritualism is something that Crispian Mills and I have in common. And I found my own trip to India to be quite profound, just like him. And I'm also sometimes accused of being posh, which I totally don't understand, but that's also just like him. I guess we just have a lot in common. Except for the hair. I mean, he has a gorgeous head of hair, while I have none to speak of. Christ, I'd kill for that hair. No, literally, I mean, I'd shank that fucker's guts out with a whittled down toothbrush if I could get those golden locks on my own tush. Wait, tush. Does tush mean ass? In which case, never mind. Having Crispian's hair hanging off your bunghole sounds like it would be a clean-up nightmare every time you took a shit. Anyway, back onto the rails. I love this record. I love the way it utilizes space to create atmospheric depth. The album feels like it only really has 5 songs on it, and the rest is just atmospheric texturing and padding. But I love that about it. It just totally sucks me into the record and absorbs my attention completely. And I also love every single song off this. Opener The Great Hosanna has a type of swaggering bravado to it, and is cocky enough to even go for a late album reprise. Mystical Machine Gun is a great single with some really cool guitar work. Shower Your Love is the lovely Beatlesque slice of psychedelic pop that features the rather perverse chorus, shower your love on me. Sure, where do you want it, Crispian? On the face? In the hair? Or Michael Rosen style? In the mouth. It was lovely. Sound of Drums was a big hit for the band, although its inclusion here seems like record company interference, as it was initially supposed to be a standalone interim single, whilst banger Golden Avatar has an immediately nostalgic Britpop glide to it. So yeah, this is the band being self-indulgent to the max, but it works. I can totally understand how a lot of people might despair of its willfully niche nature, but I personally really dig it. A rock solid 4 stars for this one. Coming in next, we have K 2.0, which was the band's 5th LP from 2016, and this is obviously calling back to the band's debut in the year of that album's 20th anniversary, which I totally get from a marketing aspect, but musically, this has very little in the way of similarities or callbacks to that previous record, which certainly raises a bit of a cynical eyebrow. I mean, clinging on to your former glories as an exercise in brand recognition only is not a particularly good look. And if this wasn't an utterly fantastic return to form for the band, it would be having its ass handed to it right now. But luckily for the band, it is, so I'm going to let that minor blip pass. And yeah, after 2 relatively ignorable outings with Strange Folk and Pilgrim's Progress, Kula Shaker sprang confidently back into the business of kicking ass on this. This LP is super consistent, the production is excellent, and unlike its original namesake, there's plenty of sonic variety, with the songs given ample space to breathe, or flex, depending on the mood. Highlights on an album with basically no downtime include the opener, Infinite Sun, which has a great chanting chorus, Holy Flame because of its immediate jangle melody and daft mysticism lyrics, Here Come My Demons is a great proggy addition with an epic build-up that has various twists and turns, and the late album track, Get Right Get Ready, has an absolutely fantastic Prince-style funk pulse to it. And speaking of late album bangers, the last 2 tracks are also killer. Mountain Lifter has some incredible guitar pyrotechnics, while 2 Sticks is a fantastic garage rock closer that revels in its energetic simplicity. My personal favourite off of this though is 33 Crows. It's a really beautiful acoustic based tune with a captivating melody, instantly memorable chorus, I saw 33 crows in the middle of the road, that's when my heart said no, and emotionally poignant lyrics. It's just an absolutely gorgeous track. So yeah, this is an excellent Kula Shaker record. It refines and perfects a myriad of elements that the band had toyed with in the past, and impresses with its consistent quality and tonal variety. It's another great addition to the band's collection of rock-solid 4-star records.
33 crows in the middle of the road, and that's when my heart said, no.
So here we are at the top of the mountain, and the Kula Shaker gold medal is going to go to the First Congregational Church of Eternal Love and Free Hugs, which was the band's 6th LP from 2022 and also last at the time of recording, which isn't surprising as I'm recording this in 2022. And here we find the band making a concept album that runs 20 tracks at 1 hour in length and includes several spoken word interludes. So yeah, I think it's fair to say that I went into this with quite a bit of trepidation. I really thought that this was going to be a bit of a rough ride for me, but as you can probably guess by the placing, I was very, very wrong about that. And on this, the band unexpectedly turn in a very English, very twee direction and start to channel the Kinks and the Beatles in a much more direct and satisfying way. And the production on this is just absolutely perfect. This sounds like a record that was somehow actually teleported in from the 1960s. The instrumentation is spot on, and the songs all feel authentic and have a type of natural delicacy about them that really lets them breathe in just the right way. And Crispy and Mills' songwriting has matured, with both the spiritual and emotional beats accurately hitting their mark. Even the spoken word interludes are great. I feared they might be pretentious, but actually they turned out to be really charming comedy skits that are genuinely funny and work well in their job of breaking up the tracks into more manageable chunks, while also adding more cohesion and atmosphere to the record. And as for the individual tracks themselves, this is Kula Shaker very clearly hitting their peak. There isn't a weak tune on this entire package, and the flow and the sequencing is perfect, and it has more delightful highlights than you can shake a psychedelic tambourine at. Whatever it is, I'm against it is lyrically pretty damn funny, with Crispian playing as the rebel without a brain set to an excellent barrage of rocking guitar riffs. Hometown has a towering Kinksian chorus, Love and Separation turns on the bluesy balladry and cascading melodies, Gingerbread Man has an almost peak Blur-like Britpop bounce to it, while Where Have All the Brave Nights Gone has a swooningly gorgeous melody to contend with. But we're not even scratching the surface. 108 Ways to Leave Your Narcissist has a great rocking 60s soundscape, The Once and Future King kicks off with Vangelis-style synths before breaking into a stormy epic with some amazing guitar work, Shattered Bones has a lilting sadness hiding within its gorgeous acoustics, while Closer Bumblebee has an uplifting punch to it that strives and succeeds to send the listener home happy. My favourite off of this though is Farewell Beautiful Dreamer, which has a melody so strong that it feels like somehow Kula Shaker time travelled and actually stole it directly from Paul McCartney's Secret Notebook. It's just a goosebump-inducingly brilliant tune, and without question my favourite ever Kula Shaker song. Every time I listen to this record, I have to skip back about 5 times to get more listens to it. It is just a phenomenal tune. So yeah, as much as I like the albums that came directly before this on the list, this isn't even close for me. In my opinion, this is so far ahead of any of the other Kula Shaker records that it's not even funny. And if you find that incredulous, just go have a look on AllMusic. All the other Kula Shaker albums have like 2 or maybe 3 stars, but this one suddenly has 4.5 stars. And although I think that AllMusic severely underrated the band's previous works, I do definitely see the bump up in quality here. So yeah, it's crazy to be giving Kula Shaker 5 stars for a record released in 2022, but here we are. Mass hysteria, dogs and cats living together, the end of the world is officially nigh. This album is so fucking good. And now I've finished my deep dive, the question remains, did I gain more appreciation for the band? Well, shit, I didn't even try to hide it at the beginning of the video. The answer is very much yes. I suspect their best work is going to be in heavy rotation for me for quite some time. And this week has just been awesome and I'm really sad to move on. But move on we must, so that's my list. But of course that won't be your list, so please sound off in the comments section and tell me how you'd rank these records. Like, share, subscribe and all that other kind of YouTube jazz. Make sure to take care of yourself, but most importantly, just keep on ranking.